Hi friends, I don't know how to start this video because this video is about me, about a personal matter, and I don't even know if I should be making this video because it is personal, and the purpose of this channel is to help women to have the life they want to have and to share helpful content about mental health, real conversation, and to restore hope, to find the deep truth inside of ourselves, and to find peace. And this video is about my health. I wrote a script, but I just don't know how is the best way to start. And I have my notes here and I have this eagerness to help and I don't know what to do with it. Here's the thing. I've been diagnosed in my perimenopause, and what led me here was a long road of suffering, of attempts to pursue the help that took a lot of time to arrive. And it's not to say that I didn't go to the right places, because my physician in her description says she's interested in women's health. She's not a specialist and never claimed to be. But as a women's specialist, I was hoping to be looked after for a person that understood women. And after I started to feel unwell and researching a lot, because I was not getting the help I needed and I don't like being passive in my own health, I discovered that the actual data for traditional medicine is basically tested in men, male men of a certain age. And that's just the beginning of the story, and that led me to research a lot more, and that led me to research a lot more, and that trickles down to all doctors. And it's not their fault. This is how medicine is funded. And this is changing, which is good news. And why am I doing this video? It seems like I am being very dramatic about the issue, but it was such a big thing for me. And the story began 3 years ago, roughly, when I started to feel not like myself, but that was very, every now and then, not very often. Although my sleep problem was gotten bigger and bigger, that is, I could not fall asleep. I was tired and wired and I could not fall asleep. And just a little before that, I had a big stress event in my family, and that led me to a month of insomnia. And insomnia is the fear of not being able to sleep. And because of that fear, you create a lot of byproducts of that fear. For instance, you don't like when it gets dark because you know you're not going to sleep and you think of that the whole day. This is another issue. The point is, I was having trouble falling asleep, and that was not an insomnia because I was hardly thinking of that during the day. I was carrying on with my life, and as a counselor that I am, I know a little bit about cognitive behavioral therapy for sleep and some other methods. So it was not that. And I went to my doctor to get some help. She said I was having iron deficiency problems. So I had to undergo a infusion. So I did. My diet and exercise, active life was average, okay. So that was not a problem. I don't smoke. I don't drink much. So that was not a problem either. And then I couldn't find the help I needed, and she gave me a sleeping pill to help me get back on track. Sometimes I would take the pill, sometimes I would endure the whole night awake, like up to 4 a.m. Nonetheless, I would keep on with my routine, waking up at 5 a.m. every morning as I do, and doing my life. I'm a mother, I am a wife, I am a businesswoman, and I have to carry on. So then I went back to my doctor again because I was now experiencing some pain, unusual pain. Then I went to the physiotherapist. I've done a treatment and I got better. The sleep problem never went away. Then after a while, I was starting to have low libido, and I thought to myself, that's normal because all of the old women I know, they say the same thing, that's normal. And I'm 40, right? 41 this year. And I thought, just, it is what it is. I started to have another problem. Reading. I could not focus. And as a counselor, you have to read a lot. And all my readings were like, I was reading something and I was not processing. Very weird, to say the least. And then that was getting worse over time. In every visit that I did to my doctor, she was circling back to my iron deficiency. And I was doing everything I could to fight that. And at some point, I started to have digestive problems. So gluten was the main thing for me. And I gradually gave up on gluten. Never asked for any tests. Neither did my doctor at that point. So then I started to, I don't even remember, to be honest, because I was having so many tiny little problems over this 3-year period. And one of them is the memory loss and the difficulty to concentrate. And according to my doctor, everything was my iron deficiency. And that was so unsatisfying, if I can put it this way. And I felt helpless because I didn't feel heard. And I could not put into words what I was experiencing. So out of myself. Then I started to have some sort of sensitivity to sensations. And that was gradual. First was caffeine. I felt the effect of caffeine throughout the day and even would have trouble sleeping at night. So now you imagine, you wake up at 5, you have a coffee, and that coffee will endure your energy until midnight. That's not normal. But nonetheless, I was having trouble with that. And every time I felt weird in my body, I would get scared and afraid. That was getting worse and worse. And I became anxious. I was aware of my body all the time. The sensation, all the sensations in my body, as if my body was fighting something. I was feeling inflamed. I was feeling awake the whole time in this constant state of alertness. I was feeling weird under my skin. I was so anxious. Sleep problems got worse. Every day I would not fall asleep at all. And I went back to my doctor over and over. And she checked my liver, my stomach, my heart, my iron over and over again, my vitamins. And nothing else. My period was getting heavier and heavier to the point that I had to change my pads every 30 minutes. I have had many accidents, like, overflow of blood in chairs, in the car, in the middle of my errands. And my doctor said, it's your iron deficiency. Take this anti-inflammatory pill to reduce your bleeding. And then I started to feel really, really unwell because I don't even know what was at that point. I thought I was just getting anxious, and in my, maybe 10 years ago, from my 20s to my 30s, I was quite anxious. I had a lot of trouble with anxiety. Then I got that under control. I've done therapy, medication, and learned many different strategies and techniques. But the anxiety that I'm telling you about, it's weird, it's different. Because we know as therapists that anxiety in your cognitions that becomes psychosomatic, it's fed by avoidance, it's fed by rumination, it's fed by unhelpful mindsets, it's fed by fear. And it was not that. I knew it wasn't. I knew it was something wrong with my body and I could not explain. Then I started to research over my symptoms over and over again. I started to feel anxious about eating, about driving, about having coffee, about having anything different. One time I had protein powder with my coffee and I thought I was going to die. The other time I took a, magnesium pill. And I ended up calling an ambulance because I was having a heart attack. But now I know I was having a panic attack. And it was so real. And it was so real at the same time. Real and surreal. I went to the hospital. I had to wait 3 hours. People asking me over again, the same questions over again, again and again. And I thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was going mad. I thought I was dying because my whole body was not okay. When I was lying down at night, I would feel my whole body awake, fighting, uncomfortable. I was desperately uncomfortable in my own skin, in my own body. So weird, so out of control. Then I started to feel cold every day. Cold, and I would shiver, headaches. And I went out to find help. Doctors, hospital, even pharmacy. No one could help me because all my tests came back normal. At some point, mid last year, I told my doctor, because of the research I was doing, I was sure my hormones was doing this disservice to me. And she didn't listen to me. And I told her over and over again, we should test my hormones. And she would do it. And then she would tell me, one or other would not be regulated and balanced, but it was really hard to measure that because we know hormones fluctuate. And I knew very little by then. But then everything started to fall in place when I finally listened to myself and I started to research about hormones. And at some point, I found out about perimenopause and how we start perimenopause from 7 to 10 years before the actual menopause day, because menopause is only a day on the calendar, letting us know, marking 1 year, 12 months with no period. That's menopause. Before this, the menopause transition is called perimenopause, and the after is called postmenopause. And I started to research more and more. When you research about it and you start reading your own symptoms, you feel such a relief, because you know you're not going crazy. You know you're not dying. You know you're not losing. You know you're not going insane. And most of all, you're not dying. I mean, we're all dying, but not from the symptoms I was experiencing. Did I mention the lower back pain? Yeah, I was feeling that too. And so at some point, I saw this nurse in the practice taking, another blood test of me. And I asked her, because she was an old lady, if she have had problems with her menopause, and she gave me a few suggestions. She told me her story, and she recommended me this place to go, the women's health clinic. And I contacted them, and I booked my appointment, and then they sent me a form. In this form, even the questions, I can't explain how I felt answering those questions, because the form was describing me. And because it took me 3 years to find that help, I felt so hopeful again, and heard and seen and validated. And I didn't even say anything about the troubles I had around my house, in my marriage, with my children, with work, and the constant fear that something was wrong with me and nothing could help me. And so I booked my appointment. I cried. Of course I did. And my practitioner explained me a few things. She referred me to some tests, blood tests, to check my thyroid, my thyroid, my hormones, some food concerns I had, my iron, some vitamins. And I was so grateful for her. So grateful to have found help, the help I needed. And so yeah, I finally got the help I needed, and she put me into hormone replacement therapy, and we would be starting with progesterone. And I am very hopeful right now. And I'm just sharing this because the more I research about it, the more I know we're not educated as women. Our physicians are not educated. So because I have this commitment in helping women with their health, with their mental health, their wellness, I felt that was my duty of care to share my own story and the journey of finding this help, and how did it go. And this is very hard for me because I don't want to share anything that is personal. However, this is a concern of women, and I serve women to the glory of God. And if that's you, if you're in your mid-30s onwards, you find help. Yeah, okay, so that was all for today, and I'll see you next time. with updates on the progesterone. Ciao.